Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cha Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 6, the downfall of Sobhari Muni, text 33-34 onwards. So what I was thinking, since these texts don't have purports, we'll just straight away go to the translation instead of studying the Sanskrit. Mandhata, the son of Yuvanashva, was a cause of fear for Ravan and other thieves and rogues who caused anxiety. O King Parikshit, because they feared him, the son of Yuvanashva was known as Trasidasyu. This name was given by King Indra. By the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the son of Yuvanashva was so powerful that when he became emperor, he ruled the entire world consisting of 7 islands without any second ruler. So this land, earth, has been ruled over by so many powerful kings for such a long time. We all know just little, very little part of the history. Bhagavatam tells us in so much of detail. Text 35-36. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not different from the auspicious aspects of great sacrifices, such as the ingredients of the sacrifice, the chanting of Vedic hymns, the regulative principles, the performer, the priest, the result of the sacrifice, the arena of sacrifice, and the time of sacrifice. Knowing the principles of self-realization, Mandhata worshipped that transcendently situated Supreme Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, who comprises all the demigods. He also gave immense charity to the Brahmins, and thus he performed yajna to worship the Lord. Text 37. All places from where the sun rises on the horizon, shining brilliantly to where the sun sets, are known as the possession of the celebrated Mandhata, son of Yuvanashva. Mandhata begot 3 sons in the womb of Bindumati, the daughter of Shashbindu. These sons are Purukuksa, Ambarish, and Muchkunda, a great mystic yogi. These 3 brothers had 50 sisters who all accepted the great sage Sobhri as their husband. Sobhri Rishi was engaged in austerity deep in the water of the river Yamuna when he saw a pair of fish engaged in sexual affairs. Thus he perceived the pleasure of sex life, and induced by this desire, he went to the king Mandhata and begged for one of the king's daughters. In response to this request, the king said, "O Brahman, any of my daughters may accept any husband according to her personal selection." So Prabhupada said, this is the beginning of the story of Sobhri Rishi. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Mandhata was the king of Mathura, and Sobhri Rishi was engaged in austerity while submerged deep within the river Yamuna. When the Rishi felt sexual desire, he emerged from the water and went to King Mandhata to ask that one of king's daughters become his wife. So this story of Sobhri Rishi actually we'll study in more detail in 10th canto, Krishna book. It is related to Kaliya Krishna, or Krishna dancing on the hoods of Kaliya. So this Sobhri Rishi, he wanted to do tapasya, just like rishis, they want to do tapasya. So he went underwater in river Yamuna, in Vrindavan. So because he didn't want anybody to disturb him. But when he was in the river Yamuna, Garudaji used to come there and he would eat fishes from Yamuna. Now Garudaji is a pure devotee of the Lord. He is a carrier of the Lord. And fishes are his food. But all the fishes, then they got together and they went to Sobhri Rishi. They said, "Oh, see, Garudji comes here and eats our fishes, so please stop him, and he just kills us. Please stop him from coming." Sobri Rishi, he didn't quite understand the purpose of Garudji coming over there and the position of Garudji. So he cursed Garudji. He cursed him. I put a curse on him that if he ever comes to this part of Yamuna, he will die. And Sobri Rishi, because he had some tapaval, and so the curse worked. So Garudji stopped coming there. So Sobri Rishi, because he committed an offense against such a pure devotee of the Lord, that as it is said, that when he saw a pair of fish engaged in sexual affairs in the water, he was doing his tapasya, and he saw two fishes doing sexual engagement. He developed lusty desires. And these lusty desires were because he committed an offense against Garudji. And so much so that he came out of his tapasya and he went to King Mandhata and he begged for one of the king's daughters for marriage, obviously to satisfy his sexual needs. But then the story goes further. I mean, this story goes here that we'll study in this chapter. But when Garudji, he used to go to Nagloka and he would kill so many snakes over there. So at Nagloka, they made a deal with Garudji that whenever you come, we'll give you a few selected snakes to eat. So you don't kill so many of them. Because whenever you come, you kill so many snakes, but you eat a few and then you leave. So just you will have your meal, but don't kill all of them or rest of us. So okay, that was a deal. So the day came when Kalia was supposed to be the meal of Garudji. So Garudji came, but Kalia attacked him, and then there was a big fight, and Garudji was very angry. How come he attacked me? And he was supposed to be my food. And Kalia then got scared because he was losing the fight, and he ran from there. And he ran and he swam through the oceans, and he knew of this curse that Sobri Rishi had put on Garudji on this part of Yamuna. So he came to this part of Yamuna and he stayed there because Garudji could not come over there. Now, that place was taken over by Kalia. And Kalia was so poisonous that not only fishes in that part of Yamuna, they died, but he killed all the trees also around that area. Only one tree was left, that was the Kadamba tree, because Garudji, there was a fight between Garudji and some demigods or demons, and Garudji had picked up the part of nectar and he flew away. He kept that part of nectar on that Kadamba tree for a while. And that is why that Kadamba tree did not die. And Krishna used that Kadamba tree to jump in that part of Yamuna. Actually, it wasn't main river Yamuna. It was like on the offshoot, there was a little lake. So that was where it was known as Kalia Daha because Kalia was living there. So it's also mentioned that, see, because Sobri Rishi, he stopped Garudji from coming there. Then what happened? Kalia came. So if we commit an offense, first of all, against a devotee, that's a big problem for us. But also, if we put an obstacle in the path of some Vaishnava in any way, then something else will happen. Some demon will come and take over, or whatever will happen, and it won't be auspicious. Of course, because Kalia was living in Yamuna for such a long time, for very, very long time. I think he came in Satyuga time, and it was Dwapar, towards the end of Dwapar Yuga when Krishna relieved him. He did not kill him because Kalia was living in Yamuna. So Krishna did not kill him. So stories are connected somehow, somewhere. It's just we have to understand why, what happens. So Sobri Rishi developed this desire for sexual activities because he committed an offense against Garudaji. So also from that story of Kalia Krishna chastising Kalia, there is a Shrutifal that anybody who reads that properly, that you will not have any fear of snakes. And also, if we read with faith Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill, or if we worship Govardhan Hill on the Govardhan Puja day, then also it is said that we don't have any fear of snakes. Because Krishna says that if people, those who don't worship Govardhan Hill on the Govardhan Puja day, they will be bitten by the snakes living on Govardhan. So if we do the Govardhan Puja, then we don't have to be afraid of snakes. And of course, if we are Garudji, if Garudji is there, Garudji's picture is there, then also snakes don't come. Anyway, these are just side-by stories. So this is what happened when Sobri Rishi. But Sobri Rishi, now he wanted to marry one of the daughters of the king, Mandhata. And he could not say no to Sobri Rishi, but he could not say yes either, because Sobri Rishi was doing tapasya underwater, and he was all old and his skin was wrinkly, and he didn't want to just give his daughters, beautiful daughters, to this kind of sage, and he could not say no either. So he said, "Oh, my daughters, they can choose. It's not up to me." Sobri Muni thought, "I'm now feeble because of old age. My hair has become gray. My skin is slack, and my head always trembles. Besides, I'm a yogi. Therefore, women do not like me. Since the king has thus rejected me, I shall reform my body in such a way as to be desirable even to celestial women. What to speak of the daughters of worldly kings?" Thereafter, when Sobri Muni became quite a young and beautiful person, the messenger of the palace took him inside the residential quarters of the princesses, which were extremely opulent. So Sobri Rishi, and Mandhata told him, "Oh, my daughters can choose whoever they want to." So he went back. But because of his yogic tapobala, he transformed his body immediately to a young and beautiful person. And not just young and beautiful, he was rich also. He had so much of opulence. And when he came back, the messenger of the palace or the security guard didn't recognize him. And what happened? All 50 princesses then accepted him as their husband, although he was only one man. Thereafter, the princesses, being attracted by Sobri Muni, gave up their sisterly relationship and quarreled among themselves, each one of them contending, "This man is just suitable for me and not for you." In this way, there ensued a great disagreement. Because Sobri Muni was expert in chanting mantras perfectly, his severe austerities resulted in an opulent home with garments, ornaments, properly dressed and decorated maidservants and manservants, and varieties of parks with clear water lakes and gardens. In the gardens, fragrant with varieties of flowers, birds chirped and bees hummed, surrounded by professional singers. Sobri Muni's home was amply provided with valuable beds, seats, ornaments, and arrangements for bathing, and there were varieties of sandalwood creams, flower garlands, and palatable dishes. Thus, surrounded by opulent paraphernalia, the Muni engaged in family affairs with his numerous wives. So, see what austerities, tapasya can do. See, he was not doing bhakti, he was only doing austerities and he got distracted. And as Prabhupada has explained, bhakti contains everything. Yoga, jnana, karma, everything is in bhakti. And they're like the maid servants of bhakti. So one who does bhakti, Krishna, he gives all these opulences, worldly opulences to a devotee also. He wants to test, or Krishna's energy, Maya wants to test the devotee. So bhakti can be there, even mukti can be there in the path of bhakti. But the devotee, if he is in proper association, if he is on the proper process, then he says, no, 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 I don't want any of these. Even if Krishna wants to give, he says, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't need it. I have nothing to do with it. I only want your service, Krishna. So please engage me in your service on. That's all. But Saubhari Muni, he got distracted. Prabhupada says in the purport, Saubhari Rishi was a great yogi. Yogic perfection makes available 8 material opulences: Anima, Lagima, Mahima, Prapti, Prakamya, Ishitva, Vashitva, and Kama Vashitva. Saubhari Muni exhibited super excellence in material enjoyment by dint of his yogic perfection. The word Baharicha means expert in chanting mantras. As material opulence can be achieved by ordinary material means, it can also be achieved by subtle means through mantras. By chanting mantras, Saubhari Muni arranged for material opulence. But this was not perfection in life. As will be seen, Saubhari Muni became very dissatisfied with material opulence and thus left everything and re-entered the forest in the Vanprastha order and achieved final success. Those who are not Atma Tattvavit, who do not know the spiritual value of life, can be satisfied with external material opulences. But those who are Atma Tattvavit are not inspired by material opulence. This is an instruction we can derive from the life and activities of Saubhari Muni. So Mandhata, the king of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, was struck with wonder when he saw the household opulence of Saubhari Muni. Thus he gave up his false prestige in his position as emperor of the world. So Mandhata was the emperor of the world, and Saubhari Muni was just a sage, austere sage. But when Saubhari Muni, he created, because of his tapobal, all the opulence, even Mandhata was surprised. Everyone is proud of his own position, but here was an astounding experience in which the emperor of the entire world felt himself defeated in all details of material happiness by the opulence of Saubhari Muni. So similarly, Prabhupada has shown his opulence also. Krishna provided him with so many palaces, so many houses, so many devotees, so many cars. Once in India, he was given an interview and he said, who could be more opulent, more rich than I am? He said, I left India with only 40 rupees in my hand at the age of 70. And then I started this movement. By Krishna's mercy, he gave me everything. He gave me house in every country of the world. Not even the richest people can imagine to do that. He gave, because Prabhupada established temples all over the world. And he said, every house, I have dozens of servants. And I don't even have to pay them. And they all have cards and so much of business going on. Who can be richer than I am? From 40 rupees, I've created 40 crore rupees, or maybe more. I don't know. Exact figure. But Prabhupada was not at all attached to any of these. He was not there to enjoy. He was there to serve. He was there to train us, to guide us, to serve us, so that we can take up Krishna consciousness properly. That's all. So this is a devotee. This is a difference between a devotee and a yogi. Next 48. Evam griheshu abhirato vishyan vividha sukha sevamano na chatushya chatushyajastu ivanelaha. In this way, Saubhari Muni enjoyed sense gratification in the material world, but he was not at all satisfied. Just as a fire never ceases blazing if constantly supplied with drops of fat. Material desire is just like a blazing fire. If a fire is continually supplied with drops of fat, the fire will increase more and more and never be extinguished. Therefore, the policy of trying to satisfy material desires by catering to one's material demands will never be successful. In modern civilization, everyone is engaged in economic development, which is another way of constantly dropping fat into the material fire. The Western countries have reached the summit of material civilization, but people are still dissatisfied. Real satisfaction is Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, the sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. One must therefore take to Krishna consciousness and advance in Krishna consciousness by properly following the regulative principles. Then one can attain an eternal blissful life in peace and knowledge. So materially, even if we try to enjoy, want to enjoy, it will not give satisfaction. Sa kadachit upasina atma pahavam atmanaha dadarsha bhava chacharyo meena sangha samuttitam. Thereafter, one day, while Saubhari Muni was expert in chanting mantras, was sitting in a secluded place, he thought to himself about the cause of his fall down, which is simply that he had associated with the sexual affairs of the fish. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that Saubhari Muni had fallen from his austerity because of a Vaishnava aparadh. The history is that when Garuda wanted to eat fish, Saubhari Muni unnecessarily gave the fish shelter under his care. Because Garuda's plans for eating were disappointed, Saubhari Muni certainly committed a great offense to a Vaishnava. Because of this Vaishnava aparadh, an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, Saubhari Muni fell from his exalted position of a mystic tapasya. One should not therefore impede the activities of a Vaishnava. This is a lesson we must learn from this incident concerning Saubhari Muni. So he was thinking, why did I do all this? And he got involved with 50 women, 50 wives, in trying to enjoy his senses. And then he's thinking, alas, while practicing austerity, even within the depths of the water and while observing all the rules and regulations practiced by saintly persons, I lost the results of my long austerity simply by association with the sexual affairs of fish. Everyone should observe this fall down and learn from it. Sangam tyajet mithun vrati nam mumukshu sarvatmana navrisrajet bahirindriyani ekas charan rahasi chittam anandishe yunjit tad vratishu sadhushu chet prasanga. A person desiring liberation from material bondage must give up the association of persons interested in sex life and should not employ his senses externally, seeing, hearing, talking, walking, and so on. One should always stay in a secluded place, completely fixing his mind at the lotus feet of the unlimited personality of Godhead. And if one wants any association at all, he should associate with persons similarly engaged. So association makes a big difference. With that, if we are in the correct association, then we develop that desire to take up devotion service or perform devotion service more sincerely. Saubhari Muni, giving conclusions derived from his practical experience, instructs us that the persons interested in crossing to the other side of the material ocean must give up the association of persons interested in sex life and accumulating money. This is the basic desire of everybody in the material world. Accumulate money and enjoy senses. That's all. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, alas for a person seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engage in sense gratification and seeing a woman who is similarly interested is more abominable than drinking poison willingly. This is how serious it is. One who desires complete freedom from material bondage can engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. He must not associate with Vishayi, materialistic persons, or those interested in sex life. Every materialist is interested in sex. Thus, in plain language, it is advised that an exalted saintly person should avoid the association of those who are materially inclined. Srila Narottam Das Thakur also recommends that one engage in the service of the acharyas, and if one wants to live in association, he must live in the association of devotees. The Krishna consciousness movement is creating many centers just to create devotees, so that by associating with the members of such a center, people will automatically become uninterested in material affairs. Although this is an ambitious proposal, this association is providing effective by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By gradually associating with the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, simply by taking prasad and taking part in chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, ordinary persons are being considerably elevated. Saubhari Muni regrets that he had bad association even in the deepest part of water. Because of the bad association of the sexually engaged fish, he fell down. A secluded place was also not secure unless there is good association. So association is very, very important. And by Prabhupada's mercy, either we associate with Purush Bhagavat or devotees, or we associate with Book of Bhagavat, Prabhupada's books. So we got to get into the habit of everyday reading Prabhupada's books. And Saubhari Muni is for the thing. In the beginning, I was alone and engaged in performing the austerities of mystic yoga. But later, because of the association of fish engaged in sex, I desired to marry. Then I became the husband of 50 wives, and in each of them I begot 100 sons. So he had 55,000 family members. And thus my family increased to 5,000 members. By the influence of the modes of material nature, I became fallen and thought that I would be happy in material life. Thus, there is no end to my material desires for enjoyment in this life and the next. In this way, he passed his life in household affairs for some time, but then he became detached from material enjoyment. To renounce material association, he accepted the Vanprastha order and went to the forest. His devoted wives followed him, for they had no shelter other than their husband. When Saubhari Muni, who was quite conversant with the self, went to the forest, he performed severe penances. In this way, in the fire at the time of death, he ultimately engaged himself in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he again performed severe penances, and then he left his body. At the time of death, fire burns the gross body, and if there is no more desire for material enjoyment, the subtle body is also ended. And in this way, a pure soul remains. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. If one is free from the bondage of both the gross and subtle material bodies and remains a pure soul, he returns home back to Godhead to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Yakta deham punarjanma naiti. He goes back home, back to Godhead. Thus it appears that Saubhari Muni attained that perfect stage. So that is the perfection of life. Not that if we create an empire of money and buildings and businesses and we get engaged, we get more and more entangled. That's not perfection. Text 55. Ta swapatyur Maharaj nirikshad niktikim gatim anviyustat prabhavena agnim shantamivachicam. O Maharaj Parikshit, by observing their husband progressing in spiritual existence, Sobri Muni's wives were also able to enter the spiritual world by his spiritual power, just as the flames of a fire cease when the fire is extinguished. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Istriyo Vaishya Sabhaj. Women are not considered very powerful in following spiritual principles. But if a woman is fortunate enough to get a suitable husband who is spiritually advanced, and if she always engages in his service, she also gets the same benefit as her husband. Here it is clearly said that the wives of Sobri Muni also entered the spiritual world by the influence of their husband. They were unfit, but because they were faithful followers of their husband, they also entered the spiritual world with them. Thus, a woman should be a faithful servant of her husband. And if the husband is spiritually advanced, women will automatically get the opportunity to enter the spiritual world. Of course, it doesn't mean the Vaishnavis. Vaishnavis are very, very powerful. It means the devotees, the ladies who are devotees. So those who are devotees, they're very, very powerful, spiritually very advanced. But for ladies in general, if their husband is spiritually advanced, and it also said that whatever spiritual practices husband does, wife gets 50% of that benefit just by serving him. That's all. So this is Krishna's arrangement. So thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose of 9th canto, 6th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, the downfall of Sobri Muni. So we'll stop here, and tomorrow we'll start the next chapter. See, anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna, please accept mine.
So these examples are an eye-opener, Prabhuji. So basically, when we do severe austerities and penances, because when we perform Bhakti Yoga, that is also like in Bhakti Yoga also, is there any severe austerity and penances, or only those yogi and Rishi Munis and all who does different kind of practices, that is the only called austerities?
No, here also, because when we want to chant, say 64 rounds or 100 rounds, that's an austerity. Or when we want to do Nirjal Ekadashi, every Ekadashi, something like that. But the good part here is that it's all devotional service. Still, people can get distracted, because many times they say that, oh, see, I'm so austere, more austere than other devotees, because on Ekadashi I do Nirjal fasting and they eat all sorts of wonderful foodstuffs. So that kind of pride can be cause of downfall. So we have to become humble, not proud. Austerities are good, but we have to become humble.
Yes, Prabhuji. So what should be our motive when we practice any kind of austerity or devotional practices? Like it is mentioned, it is noticed from all the pastimes of different characters that even after doing so much of severe austerities and all, most of the times, because of our own impurity, we fall down time to time, irrespective of doing so much of tapasya and all. So what could be the reason behind it? Was it like because of having some personal motive, not having any selfless motive? Is it because of that, or this material nature that it makes?
See, cause of fall down is always Vaishnava Prarth. So when we perform austerities, which are good for a purification, but if we become proud and if we commit offense, that is not good. So what is the use of austerity if we don't become humble and serve others? The consciousness when we're performing austerity or any bhakti yoga, bhakti process or anything, the consciousness should be somehow or other, I'm not qualified, but Prabhupada or other devotees have picked me up and they are making me perform these services. Mentality should be of humility, not pride.
Yes, Guruji. So you mean to say, even if we are practicing devotional services, it should be our conscious effort and constant effort should have that we should not develop this pride or any other unwanted qualities, and that is not going to mitigate naturally when we practice unless and until we will not put any conscious effort, right?
Yep.
Because
And that is why Prabhupada said association. Association is very important.
correct. Yes, Guruji. It is so important because secluded, that is why Prabhupada always say that we should not practice anything in secluded. Even in secluded practices also, now we can see from the current example only that while doing the meditation under the water also one can fall down. So that is the biggest risk.
Yep. Yep. Very serious. Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri
Hare Krishna, Jai Shri
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Jai